Hello there guys, it's MarthaMew here, and today we are back for another episode of POKÉMONDAY match. This time we have a comeback for Gardevoir against a Solgaleo GX deck. So we're starting the game here, drawing our cards. I draw one too many cards, and Elliot there drawing not one less than he needed. So you can see starting with one Pokemon in the active and 3 on the bench, which is quite a hefty number. Managing to get an amazing 6 cards straight off the top of the deck to put into the prizes. And I managed to do the same. I managed to get 2 bench Pokemon as well, which is pretty good. Rolling to see who goes first. Elliot getting the higher number. I start with Eevee with a Xerneas and a Ralts on the bench, and Elliot starting with the perfect start of Talonflame, which has an ability that lets you start with it if you get it in your hand first without evolving it. Using Professor's Letter to find 2 energy cards. Yeah, first turn, so can't actually attack, so draw for turn. You can see putting the energy up to the front of my hand there to attach to Eevee for energy evolution. Obviously hoping that my 1 copy of Sylveon is actually in the deck and not in the prize cards. There we go, finding the Sylveon, putting it into active. Using Nest Ball. Switching my deck for a basic Pokemon to put onto the bench. Also just looking through my deck again. Getting that Cutiefly onto the bench is a pretty important card in this deck because it's of Evolution Ribombee, can find me 2 basic energy cards from my deck once per turn. So it's basically a letter on my bench every turn, and for an energy heavy deck like this, I find that Ribombee is a really useful card to use with Gardevoir. It ensures that you have energy to attach for Secret Spring and for turn. Using the Wally then to evolve into the Ribombee, and using the Ribombee's ability straight away, Honey Gather, to find the 2 Fairy Energy in this case from my deck. So managing to fill my bench up pretty quickly there, getting a little bit lucky. Because unfortunately Tapu Lele's and Bridget's aren't in huge supply. And then declaring the magical ribbon to find 3 cards. So at this point in the game, I am looking at the fact that I have a Ralts on the bench, and I can obviously Rare Candy and get into a Gardevoir with 3 cards. That's perfectly possible. I could also get a double colourless energy to attach to the Sylveon to start doing some damage, or other plays. Obviously if I get a Gardevoir out, I can attach the double colourless energy for turn to the Gardevoir, and then also attach a basic Fairy energy card as well from Secret Spring, which is Gardevoir's ability. So you can see I've managed to get a Gardevoir in my hand with that decision. So Elliot there attaching an energy to his Cosmog and using Talonflame's attack this time to find any two cards from the deck and put them into his hand. That's why starting with Talonflame is brilliant. It's basically just like me starting with my Sylveon, but obviously Sylveon getting 3 cards instead of 2. There we go, using the Rare Candy to evolve into Gardevoir. the double colourless energy onto the Sylveon for turn, and obviously I have Secret Spring to play with, so I can attach that fairy energy from hand to the Gardevoir for Secret Spring. And then I'm looking at his field, knowing what's going to happen. He's just used Aero Blitz to find 2 cards, so I play GX, which is taking any 2 of his bench Pokemon and putting them back into his hand. This, in my thinking, was delaying him a turn, so he couldn't use a rare candy, and he couldn't even evolve the Cosmogs that he just put back into his hand, because obviously they need to be down a turn first before you can even rare candy. So instead attaching a double colourless energy down to the Rayquaza and replaying the 2 Cosmogs. Using Olivia to find 2 GX Pokemon from his deck. Really useful card in heavy GX decks like this. Doing Aero Blitz for another 40 damage and finding 2 cards from his deck, putting my Sylveon up to 8 damage, or 80. So after finding the 2 cards, I draw an N off the top of my deck. I do what I need to with the things in my hand, and I'm pretty sure I use it straight away. So attaching the double colours I had in my hand for turn, and Secret Spring at the same time onto the Gardevoir, and then using N, so basically nullifying his Aero Blitz. It's the ideal situation anytime that your opponent puts things into their hand like that and you want to try and disrupt their hand so that they don't have what they've searched for. Obviously I got very lucky and top decked at that time, and at this moment in the game we both obviously have 6 Kai's cards, so it wasn't disadvantaging me in any way. And even if I didn't draw into any more energy in the next turns, which you can see I didn't actually draw into any energy at all, I have Ribombee on the bench which can just instantly find me 2 more. Which at the current point is the only amount I can attach anyway, because I've only got 1 Gardevoir out. The Talonflame itself obviously isn't doing a lot of damage per turn, but its effect on the attack is not desirable obviously. It's also got free retreat, so I am thinking about trying to do some damage to it. Obviously Fairy Wind doing only 110 and Talonflame having 120 HP. It won't knock it out, which is always the sad news with Pokemon on EX and GX, that I can't attach a Choice Band, which I'm pretty sure I have in my hand, to the Sylveon to do that extra damage. I think I also had a Wishful Baton, so I'm looking at the fact that he can possibly get Solgaleo off pretty soon and destroy my Sylveon, so I'm thinking, well, Wishful Baton puts at least the Fairy Energy into safe quarters onto one of my bench Pokemon, obviously probably the Gardevoir at this point. So I'm choosing instead to set myself up a little bit more and use Magical Ribbon. At this stage it's a little bit more difficult to decide which 3 cards to find. Obviously energy, special energy, in this case double colourless energy for attaching for turn, is very helpful because I can always attach a basic energy card from my hand for Secret Spring. There is one more tech Pokemon I have in my Gardevoir deck that I got the basic Pokemon for in that set of Magical Ribbons, and that is a Volcarona. Volcarona's ability is basically working like a Lysander, which has now gone out of rotation, so it changes their active with one of their bench. I think Lysander's wording might be slightly different, it might be bench to active, but either way it does the same thing. So basically allowing me to bring something in and target it. So there we go, Elliot showing the rare candy to the Solgaleo, showing awesome full art Solgaleo. Aero blitzing again there, taking me up to 120 damage and finding obviously 2 more cards from his deck. Playing yet another red candy into second Gardevoir, placing that Larvesta down on the bench. That's a full bench now, guys. Just on my side though, Elliot's still got 1 gap. Attaching the double colourless energy for turn, using Ribombi's Honeygather to find 2 fairy energy from my deck. And because I have 2 Gardevoir out, I actually have access to 2 Secret Springs this turn. So if I wish, I can attach both of those energies. Yeah, which I do, to the Gardevoir that's literally just come into play. As I'm recording this, guys, there is a rather lot of snow falling outside. I wish you could see it. It's magical and really dark at the same time, so it's a little bit foreboding. Quite crazy. We're in the UK doing this, so yeah, we don't see snow that often, especially not in that amount. There we go, so attaching the Wishful Baton to Sylveon, thinking, well, worst comes to the worst, if he knocks out the Sylveon, then I get 1 energy back, and choosing to do Fairy Wind to take the Talonflame down to having 20 HP left. I think the Talonflame must have 130 HP given that. Using Professor's Letter to find 2 energy. Choosing to attach energy to the Solgaleo and use Ultra Road, or just the free retreat cost that Talonflame has to bring in the new Solgaleo, and using his GX attack, which is Soul Burst, allowing him to find 5 of any energy card from his deck to any of the Pokemon on his field that he likes. It does say any energy, it doesn't state basic energy, which is what is fantastic about Soul Burst. It can target double colourless energy. So attaching 3 energy to the Solgaleo on the bench, which is now ready to go. 1 more energy, sorry, to the active Solgaleo, and obviously having, you know, he's got 1 more in hand. So if he needs to stay in with that Solgaleo, then he's got an energy to use to attach to it. I am considering the fact that I have quite a lot of energy on both of the Gardevoirs, and obviously attachment for turn and 2 Secret Springs, so I can attach quite a bit of energy this turn if I needed to. And obviously the Solgaleo on the bench has got 3 energy and the one inactive's got 2, so it's adding an extra 60 damage to Gardevoir, because it does 30 times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. Which can be very devastating and can do the amount of damage that I'm looking for. I also know I have a Choice Band in hand, which obviously adds 30 more damage on top of that, so it's like an extra energy basically to a GX and EX Pokemon. Using the Ribombi to get 2 more energy as well. In hindsight, using all the energy like this quickly is a little bit reckless. you need to have ways to get it back in. Obviously Gardevoir's GX does do that, but I've used Plea GX already, which, as I was looking at the game when it was in that state, that was the better play to make, because I know when the Solgaleo gets going I need a few more turns to play with. Obviously having the Xerneas on the bench and there's that much energy in play would make Xerneas Break do a lot of damage. However, I haven't got the Xerneas Break, and I happen to know that there are 2 in my prize cards. Putting all of my eggs in one basket, attaching both of the secret springs to the same Gardevoir. That Gardevoir now is pumped up to the max and it has a lot of energy on it. I do the calculations, and even without the choice band, the 2 energy there so there's 210 worth of damage just on the Gardevoir itself, and then obviously adding 60 adds up to 270 HP of damage. That is monumental. So knocking out the Solgaleo, I'm just thinking if I can do anything else before I declare my attack, just to make sure I haven't missed anything. And I haven't, so just using Ultimate Force to knock out the Solgaleo. Obviously getting a really easy KO straight back, because Solgaleo can just do 230 damage straight off, and Sylveon is weak to metal. Playing another Cosmog there onto the bench and attaching an energy to it. And using his attack, I can't remember what the attack's called, but it KOs the Gardevoir with all of that energy on it. Choose to bring in Sylveon, because obviously I can search for 3 cards if I need to. And it's already damaged, so it's a sacrifice at that point. Choosing to play Hexmaniac to stop him from using Ultra Road, so he's stuck in the active with a Pokemon that's got no energy on it. I obviously realised that I haven't used my own Secret Spring at that point in the game, so it was a little bit of a mistimed Hexmaniac. But yeah, I don't think I end up attacking with the Gardevoir, so it doesn't matter too much. So attaching the Special Fairy Energy onto Gardevoir. Special Fairy Energy stops the effects of attacks except damage done to a Pokemon. I don't believe there are any effects of attacks that would be done to any of my Pokemon from Elliot's deck, however, but it's still it's an energy. And there we go, choosing to do Magical Ribbon, just using the 1 energy that's on Sylveon. Obviously this time I can find the Volcarona, or something to use to get into the Volcarona. I was eyeing up as well, I think, Fairy Garden to use to swap out for free. But yeah, I think I choose against that for different options. I know that the Gardevoir that he's KO'd a few turns ago had a lot of energy onto it, so I'm looking at an energy retrieval as well, I believe. Yeah, there's the energy retrieval. I decided that actually looking through my deck, there's not any basic energy left in there, so I'm going to have to get the energy back somehow. So in hindsight, it probably could have done with getting 2 energy retrievals, but just the 1 will suffice for now. So obviously after doing that, that's my turn ended. And the Ultra Balling, discarding Ultra of the Moon, or was it Ultra of the Sun? Ultra of the Sun, and a Talonflame, which obviously the Talonflame can't be played anymore because it would need to evolve at this stage. It can only be played face down as your first card. Rare Candy into second Solgaleo. That 250 HP on the Solgaleos is a huge problem. It's a lot of damage to get through. Using Skylar and finding any trainer card chooses the energy retrieval. Both of our decks looking a little bit thin at this point. Using the energy retrieval there to get the 2 energy from the discard pile. Attaching one of them to active Solgaleo. No play to make, so because of Hexmaniac, he hasn't got enough energy on the Solgaleo to retreat it into the Rayquaza, which is exactly why I used Hexmaniac. I knew that because of his ability, he doesn't really need to run Switch in his deck. I know there's the possibility of Guzma, but I had to take that chance basically. There we go, so evolving into the Volcarona, which can bring anything in from the bench. So if I wanted to, I mean, I can't switch out from Sylveon without attaching an energy. So I use Kukui first to see if I get anything that can let me switch. I don't believe I do, so therefore I can obviously attach an energy to the Sylveon and retreat it manually. But instead first using Nespal to get a second Ralts onto the bench, or another Ralts onto the bench, sorry. Using the energy retrieval I got from my magical ribbon. At this point, obviously looking at the Rayquaza, having identified the threat last turn to stop him from Ultra Roading into it, because it can get the energy from his discard pile onto the Solgaleos to power them up. It's got 120 HP, so I can knock it out, but the problem is I don't want to put anything that's a 2-prize knockout into active right now, other than obviously the Sylveon that's already there. But it's a possibility and it's probably worth it. So using an energy card to attach per turn to then detach them for the energy retreat cost. Going into the Gardevoir, I can then use Volcarona. Using Volcarona, there we go, to pull in the Rayquaza, which will knock out the Rayquaza. Then obviously choosing the right play into putting the Talonflame back into active. It's got free retreat, so if you need to just swap anything then you can do. Playing the Parallel City, here I made the wrong choice in discarding the Ralts over discarding the Ribombee, since I know that there's no basic energy cards left in my deck and the Ralts can become a Gallade, because I know there's only 2 Gardevoir in my deck. Which is not by choice, like I keep saying, guys. I really want more than 2, but they're expensive. But I completely forgot at that point about the Gallade. But obviously getting rid of the Sylveon off my bench is really good, because it had a lot of damage on it and it's getting rid of a really easy 2-prize KO for Elliot. Using a Lily with only 1 card in his hand means he can draw 5 cards, so he has 6. Pretty good. Town Map, pretty funky tech card in any deck. Can just show you what your prize cards are, so that when you take them, you know what you want. using Enhanced Hammer there to get rid of basically 60 damage worth of energy on my Gardevoir. And then using Aero Blitz for 40 damage. Me just checking the wording on what the special energy did, and it's just effects and attacks directed towards the Pokemon itself, not towards any of the other states of play. So going back to my turn, I managed to draw into another Ralts, which was fortunate. I did also have two Curliers in my hand, so I could have evolved the other Ralts that turn if I'd have been dubious with that, but there you go. Using Pokemon Breeder to basically draw 2 cards and heal 20 damage. I drew into a Fairy Garden, which means I could get rid of the Parallel City and play the Ralts that I drew. I'm pretty sure I can see a Wally in my hand. Obviously I've used Breeder this turn, so I can't use it right now, but obviously Wally being very helpful because next turn I can evolve into Curlier and then straight into the Gallade. So attaching 2 energy to the Xerneas, 1 for turn and 1 for the Secret Spring for the Gardevoir that was inactive. Swapping using Fairy Garden, which states basically if there's a Fairy energy on one of your Pokemon you can swap for free, into the Break card, and then obviously attacking with a Pokemon that is only a 1 prize KO instead of a 2 prize KO, attaching the Choice Band and doing 130 damage. There's 100 damage worth of energy on the board and then 30 damage from the Choice Band. Xerneas breaks attack doing 20 times the amount of energy on my field. So it would count for double colourlesses, but unfortunately I don't have any in play as well. And there's not much energy spread out either. So the board I had before, a long while ago, with both of the Gardevoirs on the bench, would have done a lot of damage. So doing 130 damage to that Solgaleo. Obviously, I'm not quite sure why Elliot doesn't decide just to KO the... Oh, I see. Using Guzma instead to bring in the Gardevoir and KOing the obviously bigger threat and more prize cards. Taking the double colours energy and the psychic energy from his prizes. Obviously at this time I've used a lot of energy from my deck, and like I said, I've been through with Rabombu the once and there is no energy left. So there we go, you can see me using the Curlier and then using Wally to evolve straight into the Gallade, which I have seen in my deck and I know is there. I can use this turn to attach 1 energy, or I can use Premonition this turn, which is Gallade's ability. It lets me look at the top 5 and put them back in any order. You can see me doing this. So I'm basically looking for double colourless if it's in there, or any type of basic energy which I know isn't in there, or obviously an energy retrieval to get basic energy from my discard pile, which I believe is what happens. Choosing my moves carefully. So I'm looking at what I can potentially get a knockout for. I know the Talonflame only has 20 damage left on it, so I can use Volcarona if I wanted to and pull in that to KO the Talonflame, just for an easy KO, getting my prize cards even fewer. And we have a unfortunate video problem where the video cuts out, but it's not. We discover it's not been a long gap, so we just replay it. So bringing out the Talonflame with Volcarona, knocking it out, like I was just saying, and then he brings the Rayquaza in, which I think he put down at some point. I don't know, but it was a valid one. He did bring that in, I promise. Putting the double colourless energy onto that, using a Kukui, drawing 2 cards, getting a Rotom from the 2 cards that he drew with the Kukui to rearrange the top 4 cards of his deck in any order he likes. Knowing that he needs energy to set Essie there, putting energy on the top. And then doing, I think, 50 damage because of the Kukui with Rayquaza to my Xerneas break. Because we obviously had to replay this, it was a little bit difficult to realise what we'd just done. So I'd actually drawn the energy retrieval from the top of the deck with Premonition, and then obviously used the energy retrieval, and then we found out that the video stopped recording. Obviously, but because of the Premonition, I knew what my top decks were anyway, so I realised obviously that card I drew for the top was actually not supposed to be drawn, so just putting that back on top there. I knew what it was anyway because, like I said, I Premonitioned. So it wasn't like a surprise. So yeah, I put the energy retrieval onto the top of the deck using the Premonition from the last turn and getting the energy cards from the discard pile. So now we are basically where we left off when the game ended, when the recording ended. Sorry. The Solgaleo that's damaged on the bench has got 120 left on it. I've got 2 prize cards left, and as does Elliot, so obviously there's no 2 prize knockouts on my field, which is really helpful for me because there's nothing that he can just straight up target down and KO for the win. However, obviously there is something I can try and target down to win, because he's got 2 Solgaleos, a Magina and a Mewtwo on the bench. Obviously the Solgaleo with damage on it is my prime target. I have obviously got the ability to use Volcarona in the same turn to bring it out and do some more damage to it. So that is going to be my only winning play. Attaching the Fairy Energy there to the Gallade. It does take a double colourless energy to, or 2 colourless energies to attack. It does 60 damage and 60 more if you've used a supporter in the same turn. But obviously the Solgaleo having 130 left, that leaves it a little bit... Or was it 120? It might have been 120, so I could have done the plays now, but I don't think I had the ways and means to use a supporter this turn. Yeah, if I'd have had a supporter for this turn, I could have ended it here and now. So I'm choosing what to hit with Xerneas here. Obviously, it's pretty obvious, really, looking back on it, that I really should hit the Solgaleo with damage on it to leave it with very few HP left, which, even without a supporter card being drawn next turn, should be a KO for the Gallade. So he can only choose to KO one of the 2 Pokemon, and either one I think would have been a KO. So if he KO'd the active Xerneas break, then I had the Gallade to come back in on, and if he brought in the Gallade and knocked it out, then I still had the Xerneas break to do damage. So obviously, and still with the Volcarona in play, I could bring in anything I liked for the targeted KO. So yeah, even if he'd knocked out the Volcarona, it's still leaving something inactive. And if obviously he's the only thing that could probably KO it, I mean, he'd have to Guzma, would be the Solgaleo. Obviously in the heat of the moment, decisions are much slower made, so make sure you don't miss anything. But like I said, pretty obvious, just do the damage to the Solgaleo GX on the bench. There you go, making the decision to use the Volcarona's ability onto the Solgaleo. And doing 90 damage, because obviously there's a energy card on the bench. So leaving that Solgaleo on 30, he can obviously come in and KO the Xerneas Break, but it only takes one prize card for a Xerneas Break, and then the Gallade from my bench, which I know I have the energy for because I obviously used energy retrieval, which gives me 2 energy, which is exactly what that needs to work. My video has actually stopped playing, so I'm not seeing what's actually happening at the minute, guys. I'm pretty sure he's using an Ultra Ball to Jet Thin at this point. And then I know there's an Ultra Rogue coming to bring the Solgaleo from the bench with energy on it to KO the Xerneas. So KOing the Xerneas, and obviously I then show bringing the Gallade in, Volcaronaing the 30 damage left Solgaleo and knocking it out, taking my last 2 prize cards and winning the game. So thank you guys very much for watching. I will see you next week with another POKÉMONDAY match, and in the meantime have a lovely work up to Christmas. Bye bye!